Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, What's in a Name? Food Labels and What They Really Mean. You have myself, Coach Stephanie, and Coach Melanie. Before we get started, a couple of items to address. Hopefully we will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. If so, please type questions into the question box located in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar online. If you would like a copy of the presentation in PDF format, or if you have questions that do not get answered, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end of this webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's agenda, we're going to take a look at food labels, when, why, and how they came to be, and how these labels relate to the nutrition facts and the ingredients we intake daily on products. First, let's take a quick look at the history of processed foods, because without these processed foods, we would not have food labels. So while food preservation has been in place for thousands of years, it is within the last 100 that we have seen the greatest changes to the production and consumption of these foods. The introduction of trans fats in the late 19th century gave way to the processed food movement. We saw crackers, cereals, and cookies become available. These products were convenient, easy to handle, and had a surprisingly longer shelf life. In the 1940s, an increased production of high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, and modified cornstarches gave way to the rise of boxed meals, frozen dinners, chips, candy bars, cake mixes, diet sodas, and more. But it was not until 1990 that the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act required all these packaged foods to include standard nutrition labeling information, telling us what we were consuming. In the early 2000s, we saw more food labels such as low-fat, low-calorie, sugar-free become hot buzzwords appearing on all sorts of processed foods. As of late, consumers have begun questioning what processed foods include and what these labels actually mean. So let's go ahead and take an even closer look at these food labels and why we have them in place. Food labels are important for a variety of reasons. They alert us with food allergies such as gluten sensitivities, lactose intolerance, etc., what we can eat and what we want to avoid. Further, food labels provide information for those managing type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, etc. With these labels, we see low fat, low calorie, sugar-free, and heart healthy as an example. As of late, more and more food labels are providing consumers with information for preferred products. You may have noted paleo, organic, non-GMO, grass-fed, free-range, etc., becoming more and more prominent on store shelves. So let's take a look at the regulation of these labels. So there are three claims to understand. First, we have our health claims. These state the relationship of any substance to a disease or health-related condition. So an example would be 3 grams of soluble fiber from oatmeal daily in a diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce our risk of heart disease. This cereal has 2 grams per serving. Second, we have nutrient content claims, which describe the level of a nutrient in a product, using terms such as free, reduced, high and low for comparison. Examples you may note would be low calorie and fat-free. Third is the structure or function claim. This describes the role of a nutrient and its effects on our body. Examples include calcium builds stronger bones and antioxidants maintain cell integrity. These claims are intended to be truthful, non-misleading statements, but all do not undergo pre-review by the FDA. So keep an eye out for disclosure statements. Note that only these foods that have been specifically processed, altered, or reformulated bear these claims. For example, you wouldn't note blueberries as low calorie or rich in antioxidants, even though they most certainly are. So as we all know, these food labels are catchy. Let's take a closer look at a few that have been trending over the past few years. So again, we see the rise in fat-free, low-fat, and low-calorie options. We do know that our bodies require caloric intake as well as fat to function each and every day. When calories and fats are removed, we see preservatives, artificial flavors, and sugars added instead, These additions leave our bodies starved for nutrients and craving that sugary meal soon after consumption. Another popular label is zero trans fats. Trans fats are highly processed, hydrogenated oils. They're found in everything from baked goods, shortenings, margarines, chips, to refrigerated doughs. Unfortunately, so long as a product contains less than 0.5 grams trans fat, it can be listed as 0 grams trans fat. Keep an eye out for these specific foods and note partially hydrogenated and hydrogenated vegetable oils on the ingredient label. Next, we have lightly sweetened, no added sugar, and sugar-free. Sugar is an inflammatory. Thus, there are a multitude of terms advertising its removal. Lightly sweetened is still sweetened. No added sugars still contain those sugars, and sugar-free includes artificial sweeteners at that point. Artificial sweeteners are known to have negative effects on our bodies, even affecting glucose, as well as increasing our cravings for those products yet again. Another popular term that's been trending is gluten-free labeling. This hot buzzword has been around for the past few years. Gluten-free options ensure that the protein found in wheat, rye, and barley is removed, making it safe for those with celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. These labels provide great information, but if you're not dealing with a sensitivity, don't be fooled. Gluten-free breads, crackers, cookies, candies, etc. aren't so much healthier than those with gluten. Focus on naturally gluten-free options. These labels do remain FDA approved.
Okay, so now we're going to focus on one specific type of label that has to do with organic foods. So organic foods has grown in popularity quite a bit over the past several years. So we're going to dive into it more deeply. So what are organic foods? The term organic is referring to how food is treated during production. Organic foods are not allowed to be treated with conventional pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, and sewage sludge. In addition, packaged organic food can't be treated with artificial food additives. So they won't contain artificial sweeteners, preservatives, colorings, and flavorings. The amount and the types of organic food has grown quite a bit. Obviously, fruits and veggies are available with organic options. So are grains, dairy, meat, and more recently, there are a lot more packaged foods that are also available as organic. So now we'll discuss organic versus non-organic. There are a lot of questions out there of whether organic really is healthier or if it offers any additional benefits as far in comparison to non-organic. So when it comes to organic foods, they have been shown to be higher in some vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. For example, one study found that some organic produce contains about 58% more antioxidants and 52% more vitamin C. For another example, organic meat and dairy is shown to contain higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, which is essential to help with reducing your risk of heart disease. Now, to touch on non-organic foods, if you're eating non-organic, produce, meat, veggies, they're still very nutritious. You're still getting all the vitamins and minerals in comparison to organic foods. In addition, it's also more cost-effective. Organic food does tend to be more expensive and does spoil faster than non-organic foods. Something just to keep in mind. Also, just because something is labeled as organic doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthier. For example, if you're buying organic packaged food like cookies, it's still empty calories. But, so it's just something to keep in mind. And organic is an option for individuals who do want to avoid certain chemicals like pesticides and artificial ingredients, or, just for personal and health choices. So ultimately, it's up to you to decide whether organic is right for you, and definitely continue to do your research. Now, when it comes to identifying what is organic food at a label, thankfully, the USDA has created a certification program for this. So farmers and food producers have to meet strict government standards in order to get this certification, which is the USDA Organic label that you see on the slide. There are also some statements on the label that you can look out for. So 100% organic means that the item or the product has to contain only organically produced ingredients. So no other ingredients or additives are permitted, and also it'll have the USDA Organic seal. Now you also see foods that just say organic, and these foods have about 95% organically produced ingredients, and they will also have the USDA Organic seal. And another term you'll see is made with organic ingredients. So these foods will have at least 70% to 94% of organic ingredients, but will not have the USDA Organic seal. And some other foods that you might see will have less than 70% organic foods, and they cannot use the term organic anywhere on the label. So also, obviously, they can't have a USDA Organic seal. And you can identify some organic ingredients by looking actually at the back ingredient label statement with more info. So that just gives you an idea of what to look for as far as organic foods and organic labeling. Now, I'm going to touch on some other additional food labeling terms.
Thank you, Melanie. Along with organic comes the following labels. So let's take a closer look at these labels entering the whole food market, how they are defined, and if they are USDA regulated or not. So first off, we may all note the advertisement of hormone-free and antibiotic-free labeling. Hormones and antibiotics are used to increase growth rate or milk production in animals. Some are natural, some are synthetic, and some, like RBGH, are genetically engineered. No antibiotics and no hormone claims are regulated by the USDA. Unlike antibiotics, hormones are not allowed in use of pork or poultry production. They are, again, prohibited by the USDA. A next trending buzzword term is cage-free, which is an unregulated term that suggests eggs are laid by hens able to roam in the hen house, but not necessarily with access to the outdoors. Grass-fed requires cattle, sheep, goat, bison, etc. to consume a diet of fresh pasture and the potential for stored grasses during winter months or drought conditions. In 2016, the USDA standard was revoked and it is now a voluntary claim. Grain finish follows along the same regulations. The definition entails that the animal does consume grass products, but is an undetermined amount of time before slaughter finished with grain in its diet. Free range and free roaming suggest that the product came from an animal that was able to roam. USDA only regulates this term for poultry. Pasture raised suggests that the animal was raised outdoors on pasture, but this term also remains unregulated. While these labels intend to provide valuable and very healthy information for us consumers, many go unregulated or regulated by third-party independent nonprofits. Cut through the noise and get to know your farmer or obtain further information through online research.
All right, so now that we've discussed some key terms on the front label, let's take a look at the back labels on nutrition facts. So you'll see two actual nutrition fact labels. I'm going to focus on the left one for now, which is what we see nowadays on our packaged foods. And it's just important just to understand that nutrition fact, the label, is just a great tool to help you kind of make wise choices when it comes to your diet. So first thing you should look for is the servings and the serving size. It will basically state how many calories are in a single serving size. So the key is to know what actually constitutes a serving size. So let's say you have a bowl of cereal. The serving size says it's about 100 to 150 calories per serving. So if you actually look at what a serving size is, which is typically about 3/4 to 1 cup, but then if you actually think realistically, if you fill your cereal bowl and you're actually getting about 2 cups, you're getting double the amount of everything, of calories, sugars, etc. So now if you go down a bit and you'll see fats, carbs, proteins, those are what we call macronutrients. And those are foods that our body needs to maintain its function. So they're very important. Now keep in mind that the amount that every individual needs will vary on a bunch of different factors, their sex, their age, their size. So definitely encourage you to research online, or there are even apps out there to help you just figure out about how much nutrients you need for your body. But also, if you look to the right of each nutrient, you'll see the percent of daily value. And that basically provides a percentage of each nutrient based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. But keep in mind, the amount of calories and nutrients you need, again, will vary based off factors of your sex, your activity level, and age. So now I want to turn to the right nutrition facts label. And this is actually just very recently released by the FDA. They just announced it that in the next couple years they are going to change the nutrition fact label to make certain things very clear. So if you can see, the serving size and calories are in bold. So it makes it much more clear to see how many calories and what constitutes a serving size in comparison to the other nutrition label where it's kind of a blur of information and you're not really going to want to look through it. So basically, it's making it clear of the serving size, the calories, and if you can look down at the added sugars. If you compare it to the other nutrition facts label, it only shows 1 gram of sugar. But if you look at the newer one, it shows 10 grams of added sugar, which is awesome. It's a really great tool to see, you're getting much more sugars in your foods than you think, which we'll touch on later. But I just wanted to point that out. And also, the FDA has made it known that manufacturers will have until July of 2018 to comply with this new regulation. Something definitely to keep an eye out for. So basically, some key things to take away with the nutrition label is it's a great resource and a guide as a first step to becoming more aware of how much you're eating when it comes to servings and portions. Also, keeping in mind the additional calories, carbs, sugars, etc. that you're getting along with it. So now we're going to switch gears a bit and get into the ingredients actually found in packaged foods. So when it comes to ingredients, there are a lot of ingredients out there in packaged foods. I definitely don't have the time to go through all of them, so I'm just going to touch on a few of the most common ingredients. Sugars. Sugars is one of the main things. We discuss it all the time here. And just so you're aware, there are 56 different names for sugar alone that you'll see in packaged foods. And just to give you an example of a few, some names for sugar include agave, molasses, maltodextrin, sucrose, rice syrup, beet sugar, and corn syrup. And they're, of course, found in a variety of packaged foods, anything from yogurt, ketchup, breads, and pasta sauce. So it really doesn't matter if the food is actually a sweet food or a savory food. More often than not, it will have some type of sugar in it. So, of course, these added sugars are definitely a concern for anyone who has blood sugar issues, other health conditions, or even if they're trying to lose weight. Sugar affects that, so definitely something to keep in mind. And also, just so you're aware, their recommended daily dose of sugar for women is about 25 grams per day. For men, it's about 38 grams. And for children, it's about 12 to 25 grams. I just want to plug in there, we also have a webinar about sugar, which is really great. So if you really want to dive into more information learning about sugar, please check it out on our Health Check 360 blog. But moving on to sugar alcohols, they're basically a type of sweet carb. You'll find them in sort of sugar-free foods like sugar-free gum and candy. Some common names are xylitol and erythritol. The good thing about these is that they don't affect blood sugar and insulin levels the way sugar does. And it's something that might be recommended for anyone with elevated blood sugar, maybe by their doctors or a dietitian. But the concern to keep in mind is that if you consume these in large doses, it can cause digestive issues. So with anyone with like IBS or sensitivity to carbs, might want to consider avoiding them. Now moving on to artificial sweeteners. Basically, these are chemicals that are invented to affect of sugar to make our tongues think that we're tasting sugar in our taste buds. So most artificial sweeteners are hundreds of times sweeter than sugar. So if you ever tried a diet soda, you definitely can attest to this and really understand how sweet artificial sweeteners are. Some common sweeteners are aspartame and saccharin. And of course, you can find these any kind of diet food, cereals, yogurt. Now, when it comes to effects on our health, there's a lot of questions about this. Studies have shown that by consuming artificial sweeteners regularly, a person has a 12% greater risk of type 2 diabetes, a 34% greater risk for metabolic syndrome, which is basically a cluster of conditions like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and excess weight. Another study actually found that it actually disrupts the good bacteria in our digestive system. So it's something definitely also to keep in mind and be aware of. So as you can see, there are all types of sugars out there and they have different risks associated with them. So it's important just to understand that in excess, any of these sugars will have risks. But yeah, moving on to fats. So before we dive in, I just want to touch base and say that there are good fats, but we're discussing what is typically found in packaged foods. So the fat that's typically found in packaged foods is vegetable oil. Some other names would be soybean, safflower, cottonseed, canola, and corn oil. So these are really processed oils that go through a mechanical and chemical process to extract oil from the plants. The big concern with vegetable oils is that they're high in omega-6, or what's known as polyunsaturated fats. So if you consume too much of these, you're at a greater risk for inflammation, which in turn increases your risk for cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes. Another thing I just wanted to touch on that Steph actually already mentioned is that hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils are trans fats. So when you're looking at a label of ingredients, actually look for hydrogenated oils because even if it doesn't say it in the nutrition facts, it will say it in the ingredient label. Now we're going to move on to actually preservatives. Preservatives are basically any ingredient that prevents food from decaying or extends its shelf life. So there are natural preservatives, so like vinegar, salt, sugar, lemon juice have been around for ages and have been used since before refrigeration to help preserve foods. But now, over recent decades, chemical preservatives have been invented, and I'll just go through a couple. So nitrates is a very common one used in processed meats. So like sausage, bacon, sandwich meat typically have nitrates. So I definitely encourage you to do your research as far as nitrates because there are some risks associated with them, at least when consumed regularly. Another type of chemical preservative would be benzoates, which is typically found in soda, salad dressings, and marinades. And just a quick note, some studies have shown links with benzoates and hyperactivity in children. Something to keep in mind as far as risks with these. Another typical one is MSG, which is a type of sodium. One thing I've found is that in large doses, it has been shown to have adverse effects to people who have sensitivity to it. So with any of these, there are people who have sensitivities or allergies to them, and they don't know until eventually they have to do an elimination diet to figure out what's going on. But moving on to food coloring, there are, again, natural sources. So like spices like saffron, paprika, and annatto have been around for ages to use to dye foods, but there are also now chemical sources. So you might see on like cereal, red dye number 40 or yellow number 6. And these are just chemical dyes. And the concern with these is that, again, allergies. Some people do have allergic reactions to these types of chemical colorings. Also, again, it has been linked to hyperactivity in some children. So something definitely just to keep in mind and do your research to see what studies have been shown about these. But basically, to sum up all of this about ingredients is that more often than not, chemicals are used in packaged foods that may or may not affect a person based on individual factors. So, of course, how much you consume or whether or not your body has a sensitivity or allergy to it, will impact how much it affects you. So, again, I definitely encourage everyone to do their own reading and research to see, if they want to learn a bit more on the impacts of certain ingredients that they may have on their health. So yeah, I mean, we've gone over so much information. So again, continue to do your research and read. But we just want to tie up all this information that we've gone over. So what does all this mean? Basically, what we really want to focus on is less is more. The less packaged food you can consume, the better. But also realistically, when you consume packaged food, take a glance at the back. Look at the actual ingredients, the nutrition. Understand what's in your food, and also the less ingredients in a packaged food, also the better. And again, focusing on the ingredients instead of the products and the packaging is key. So knowing again what's in your food, what you want to focus on whole foods, fruits, veggies, meat, dairy, and so on. Instead of packaged food at least as part of your main diet. So again, whole foods is the healthiest option. And it's also again being realistic to what works for you, but finding that balance will definitely help you long term. So again, if you do have other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We have, if you're into social media, we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can watch any of our past webinars on our Health Check 360 blog. But if you do have additional questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to one of our coaches. You can give us a call or email us. We'd be happy to help. But yeah, thanks so much for taking time to listen to us today.
Thank you, Melanie. And unfortunately, we have run out of time for questions. If any questions did not get answered, please email our support inbox, and we would be more than happy to hear from you. Again, thank you all for tuning in to today's webinar. Have a great rest of your day.